Hey guys, and welcome back to the Schmucklebud YouTube channel. And we have a follow-up video to the Raw versus Republic Tobacco, Republic brands, whatever you want to call them, case. So, a viewer of mine named Vicky sent me over the memorandum, opinion and order from the judge that was dated, I believe, in December of last year, so December 6th of 2020. 2022, not 2020. I'm sorry, 2022. So, practically, before I get into it, a little warning: this is an opinion and an order, so it's not really citable evidence per se. It's the judge's opinion on the case and the reasoning behind the decision of the court. However, it clears up a lot of information in it. And it has a lot of good evidence of what happened in the case that is very important and is very eye opening even. So yeah, without further ado, I guess I'll just get into it. So you'll see here first that HBI was actually granted and awarded almost $1 million in lost profits and statutory damages from a copyright infringement claim that they had on Republic brands, which is nuts. I didn't know that this happened, but HBI actually sued Republic at one point for a copyright infringement, and they got $979,000 from it. However, this led to all this. Now, I will link this document in the description for you to read it because I cannot possibly go through everything that's in this document. It's packed full of stuff. There's a lot of very surprising detail, and it's just very interesting, especially if you're into law. It's a very interesting court case. But I'm just gonna get to what I find is the really, really juicy details, and that starts with the Alcoy Spain stuff. Unfortunately, the raw charities really didn't get discussed in this. I do know from information in the past day that Raw Foundation was never a registered charity, and I know Josh Kesselman, the CEO of Raw, went on and said that's because of tax purposes, but because it was never an LLC. That's how Republic was able to win on that part of the case. However, the Alcoy Spain stuff is honestly, I would argue, even worse for Raw's brand than the charity fiasco. So the first thing is, as it says right here, Republic also presented evidence that HBI's papers is not actually made in Alcoy, Spain, but is bulk produced in Saint Jeroen, France, by a supplier named Schweizer. Wow. The paper is then cut and converted into booklets by a supplier named Iberpopple, who I discussed in my latest video, at a factory in the village of Beningmarfel, Spain. So the paper that you smoke, the raw paper, is not made in Spain. It has never been made in Spain. It's actually been made in France, but the booklet is made in Spain. So technically, when it says made in Spain on the booklet, that's correct. The booklet is made in Spain, but the paper itself is not made in Spain. It's made in a factory in France, and that goes directly against what Kesselman has preached his entire life. He has always made it seem like this is made by. I mean, it's even said on the raw packets that it was made in Spain, in Alcoy, the birthplace of rolling papers, whatever that motto was. That was the first thing that opened my eyes in this. I know somebody in the comments below in the last video mentioned that they're actually claiming they're made in France, and that's because they are made in France, and they're bookletted in Iberpopple. By Iberpopple in a factory in Beningmarfel, Spain. This leads me to a lot of the. So, how Raw in the court case, according to the memorandum, fought this was that Alcoy was actually not misleading because they were referring to the entire region of Alcoy, the entire region of Alcoy. It says right here, in arguing that its statement regarding Alcoy are not misleading, HBI attempted to tie the village of Beningmarfel to Alcoy as part of some sort of broader Alcoy region of Spain. HBI introduced at a trial a 1954 U.S. Army Corps of Engineers map from the U.S. Library of Congress, which showed Beningmarfel on the page of the map entitled Alcoy, 2nd edition. Josh Kesselman also testified that he spent a lot of time in the area and that from his personal experience, people in Benning Marfil refer to themselves as Alcoyanos, and that Benning Marfil is close in proximity to the city of Alcoy. So that was their defense, practically, on why they felt like they would be able to market themselves as made in Alcoy. What's funny here is that the judge even went on to say that HBI's argument is not convincing. First, the paper itself is obviously made in France, and to the extent that the paper is cut, processed, and watermarked in Benning Marfil, Spain, it is unclear from the evidence produced at a trial whether it is part of the larger Alcoy region. The judge then goes on to explain why the U.S. Army map really isn't a representation of Spain's geography. And then also, the judge stated that the testimony of Kesselman, who was a non-Spanish speaker, directly contradicted that of a native Spaniard and rolling paper industry expert, Santiago Sanchez. Sanchez stated that Benning Marfil has nothing to do with Alcoy, and there is no larger Alcoy region. So he then goes on to say, is Benning Marfil a suburb of Alcoy? No, it doesn't work like that here in Spain. It's a different village. It does not belong in any way to Alcoy. It's what would be a different county, the equivalent of a different county here, as you have it in the U.S. So for the people that watch me that are in the U.S., you know how different counties are they're divided pretty differently. So the point that Republic brought up was that Alcoy is in nowhere the region that Benning Marfil is. But what's funny, and what I honestly has curved my opinion in this case, is that the paper itself is still not made in Spain like what was originally touted as. It's made in France. Just the booklet is made in Spain. You can't say that the paper was made in Spain when just the booklet was. So it's wild to me. In short, this is another opinion from the judge. In short, HBI's advertising activities were a clear effort to take advantage of the city of Alcoy's history in the production of tobacco rolling papers without HBI actually making its own paper there. With these findings in mind, the court now turns to HBI's requests and edits regarding the Alcoy language. This is where it got really interesting, too. So, HBI is now trying to make a case on why it should still be able to use the Made in Alcoy, Spain stuff, and this is the stuff they presented to the court. Most of what is read here, you'll see a lot of stuff that we've already known from the Republic media release. A lot of what you see here is HBI trying to fight against a lot of the language that was in the settlement or in the injunctions. So yeah, the first real one was I don't believe it was the expansion of the footnote. It was the Made in Alcoy, Spain, the birthplace of rolling papers. Obviously, like I said, I put everything in the description. I'm kind of going over what I found interesting, but I implore you to read the entire opinion and decision, because even as someone that is not fully into court cases, it's not really my forte. It's not something that really interests me. Everything in here was very interesting to read about, and it gave me a broader perspective on the case. But anyways, HBI requests deletion of the language, enjoining it from saying that raw organic hemp rolling papers are made in Alcoy, Spain, the birthplace of rolling papers, citing Kesselman's statement as an expert in the history of rolling papers. HBI argues that describing Alcoy as the birthplace of rolling papers on its packaging is not untrue, but rather a difference in opinion. But as discussed above, it is not as much that the description of Alcoy as the birthplace of rolling paper is problematic. Its placement is directly after the statement that the rolling paper is made in Spain, which I agree with the judge on this. I do not think it's right to spin this into thinking the paper itself is made in Spain when it's just the booklet. It is very misleading marketing, and I'm starting to agree with the court's decision on this. based on the evidence that we know about. HPI's what HPI wanted on the packaging was made in Spain, and then period Alcoy, the birthplace of rolling papers. I actually have a raw black with that on there. It just says made in Spain with a period, and then under it says Alcoy, the birthplace of rolling papers, instead of made in Alcoy, Spain, the birthplace of rolling papers that was on a lot of raw packets. So they already started changing it over. And what's funny is the list of enjoined statements is denied. HRA has requested deletion of made in Alcoy, Spain, the birthplace of rolling papers from the list of enjoined statements is denied. They were not granted this. So then it goes into a little bit about the stamp language. HPI requests language making clear that though it agrees to discontinue the listed statements in its promotion, packaging, and advertising, it does not consent to that those statements were or are false. HPI's proposed edit states HPI has since represented the court that it has stopped or will stop making the statements indicated above, and without consenting to or finding that any of the subject statements was or in false, HPI has agreed to entry of an order as follows. So HPI will not admit that they were false in this claim, but they are going to take it off. They'll agree so to the order. So that's kind of funny. They're still not admitting that the statements were false. So do with that as you will. And what's really funny is falsity is not an element of an IUDTPA or unfair competition violation, which I found was very funny, that falsity is not a part of this law. So I don't know. The rest is kind of just stuff we've already known about. I would suggest that you read about it. A lot of it's about the OCB and hemp disagreement. The last thing that I'll really talk about here is HPI's the removal of requirement that HPI provide notice of its orders to its customers. HPI requests the removal of the following sentence: within 10 days of the entry of this order, HPI shall provide actual notice of this order to its wholesalers, distributors, and other customers, and instruct them to refrain from engaging in any of the above prohibited marketing and promotional activities. So Republic argued for the inclusion of this language because it will allegedly protect HPI's wholesalers, distributors, and other customers from inadvertently incurring liability for propagating HPI's lies and misrepresentations. HPI, meanwhile, argues that requiring it to notify its resellers of the injection and instruct them to following it may chill sales of HPI product, prompt the return, blah, blah, blah. People practically will get upset, which is, funny enough, actually what's happening right now, and they didn't even have to notify their wholesalers or resellers. So, yeah. This sentence shall not be included in the final order. So, officially here, the judge goes over why HPI shouldn't be entitled to including that into the final order, but I found it funny that it came out anyways, and it did exactly what they were scared about in the opinion. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, that's kind of what we know so far. I felt like this getting sent to me was a great follow-up. There's a lot of good information in here, and we know for a fact that the papers are not made in Spain. This kind of confirms it, that the court found it. That's why they went in this position. Do I think OCB still went after Raw for competition reasons? Hell yeah, it's corporate America. That's what's going to happen. But it provides a little bit of background. This will be in the description below. Please read it. There is stuff I skipped over just because I don't have time in this video to talk about. This literally could be a 45-minute video. I just want to get to the good parts, and that's the Alcoy Spain stuff. The stuff I still want to know about is Raw's lying about the charity thing. I think that it not being an actual LLC or actual, not LLC, actual registered, is it 501 charity? The registration process for becoming a charity. I believe that's the reason why it got brought up in the court and why it's been determined that they're lying about it. But yeah, so with that, I will leave this for right now. Obviously, there's probably going to be even more videos that come out about this. Um, Huge thanks to another fellow WeedTuber, Goblin, for the information about the charity thing. I do want to cite him. That's where I got that on Twitter. But yeah, if leave your opinions below. This is very interesting. It's kind of sad. Obviously, raw papers are still raw papers. They're still good papers, but obviously the marketing behind them is false, and that's a little bit upsetting, especially because of how Kesselman has represented the raw brand to us. So, yeah, without further ado, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in the future. Have a nice one.